Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast, the podcast where I get to simplify the marketing and the mindset for chiropractors so you can make more money, have more impact, and bring a whole bunch more enjoyment into your practice. I think this is episode 245. I'm always a bit nervous to say that because sometimes things change around. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the difficulty or the problem with marketing, wellness, and prevention as well. This was a huge lesson for me. Here's what we're going to chat about in today's episode. We'll talk about why selling prevention and wellness is difficult, expensive, and often results in failure and a complete kind of waste of time and frustration, all of those things. I'll share with you how to market your practice in a way that's easier, more effective, that's totally not manipulative, and is not a bait and switch, because often this is where it's pitched. You're either kind of talking wellness or prevention, or otherwise it's a bait and switch. I'll explain those terms perhaps moving forwards as well. We'll talk about the one thing that you need to have in your marketing if you're going to completely knock it out of the park. And I'll show you also why your products and services perhaps might not be as important as you think. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be great at what you're doing. In fact, I think that's the foundation, but I'll tell you why they're perhaps not as important as maybe what you think they might be. Let's go on a journey. I'm going to take you back a little bit about 10, maybe 12 years ago. It's when I started to notice in my practice that the external screenings that I were doing, for a long time there, we could once a month go out and do an external screening. It was basically a posture screening that we would do. We would do them at festivals, we would do them at local shopping centres, and usually for a day's investment time-wise, we would get anywhere between 30 and 50 new patients from it. Now, we only needed to do that kind of once a month. We were good with our retention. Most of those people turned up, and it really helped us to maintain, firstly build, and then maintain a really thriving practice. For a long time, we were seeing kind of well over 400 patients a week. We helped our retention by doing a weekly spinal care class as well. I've shared a lot of this with you in the past. Those two things were the foundations of what allowed us to build our practice. Now, with time, what started to happen is that those screenings from 30 to 50 on a weekend started to be kind of 20 to 30, and then eventually they just stopped working. They were no longer new, they were no longer different. The community didn't really see them as a service anymore. And I know there are some of you that are still doing them with good results, but they certainly don't work as effortlessly today as they did kind of 10 or 15 years ago. So I started to investigate other marketing forms. I spoke and organised an appointment with a guy from the local newspaper, and he came and had a chat with me. Wanted to find out a little bit about our business, and then he gave his recommendations. Now, his recommendations were basically the question he asked is like, what market do you serve? Who do you get results with? And I kind of knowingly and probably a little bit arrogantly shot my answers back to him. Said, look, chiropractic is not about symptoms at all. In fact, chiropractic is one of those things that's good for everybody. A bit like going to the dentist. If you've got a set of teeth, you should go to the dentist. If you have a spine, you should see the chiropractor. We see people of all ages from the womb to the tomb. Now, he again encouraged me instead to market very specifically to solving a problem. Maybe we could have some articles in around back pain or headaches. And I didn't want to talk about pain at all. At that stage, my practice was very much focused on wellness only. And we certainly talked a little bit of symptoms inside of our practice, but not a lot, okay? We were very much a family wellness practice at that stage. Now, I didn't follow any of his advice. He was very happy to take my money and do the ads my way. And not a surprise, my ads were a complete failure. I ran them for a number of months, and I came to the conclusion that advertising in the newspaper didn't work. It was the wrong conclusion to come through. I was actually missing something as well. My marketing was missing a very special ingredient. Now, marketing a bit like baking a cake. There are some of the ingredients that you can kind of put in and some that you can take out, and you can vary them and you can still end up with a really great cake. But there are some ingredients that you can't change at all. There are some ingredients, if you want your marketing to be a success, it needs to be in there. So for instance, I don't mind whether you're on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. I don't mind, maybe you want to have your entire focus at blogs. Maybe it's a podcast like this you want to do. Maybe it's videos, maybe it's short videos, maybe it's long videos, maybe it's reels. These are all ingredients. These things we can vary back and forwards. And I've seen practitioners have great success with all of these different ingredients. But there's one ingredient that we must have in there, and I'll share with you what this ingredient is by telling you a story about a great marketer, a guy by the name of Gary Halbert, legendary marketer. He's passed now. And people would often come to him and say, what is the biggest predictor of success of a marketing campaign as well? And he says, I'll tell you what it is by telling you a story. And this is stories within stories within stories. He says, I want to pretend that you and I are both going to open up a restaurant. And you can have whatever you want in your restaurant, whatever you want. And he says, I only want one thing in my restaurant. Okay, there's one thing that I'll have in my restaurant that guarantees success. And he says, I bet my restaurant outdoes yours. Now, I want you to think about this as you're listening along. If you were to open up a restaurant and you had a genie there who would give you anything that you wanted to maximize your chance of success, what would you want for? Now, I've asked this question lots to my community influencer members, and they will say things like, maybe I'd want a celebrity chef, maybe I want Gordon Ramsay or Jamie Oliver in there. I want amazing food, beautiful decor, of course. I want the restaurant in an incredible space, maybe the real cool part of town as well. And so they go on and on and on. And I ask them this again and again and again. I say, have you finished? Is there anything else that you want there too? And then they'll come back and say to me, well, what do you want? Or that people would say to Gary Halbert, what do you want? He says, all I want is a starving crowd. Like when you've got hungry people, they don't care about anything else. They will pay almost anything for your food. It's a bit like setting up a water stand in the middle of the desert. You could charge a lot for your water out there. What was missing for me in my original advertisements that I was doing for in the newspaper is I was really missing out on that starving audience. Now, when we think about this, I mentioned at the beginning that I was going to tell you that your product isn't nearly as important as what you think it is if you have a starving audience. Think again, while we're on the food side of things, this time you're going to open up a hot dog stand. Now, your hot dogs are not all that good, okay? You're selling your hot dogs that for some reason they're lukewarm, barely warm. The bread that you've got is 2-day-old stale bread. And you're going to sell these hot dogs at an exorbitant price as well. You're going to sell them for, $10 or $12 when normally they're, $4 or $5 as well. Now, if you set up that hot dog stand out the front of, let's say you set up in front of one of the local gyms where people are kind of health conscious, they're coming out for the gym and they get this waft of kind of warm hot dogs and they can see the stale bread there as well. And you're charging $12 for it as well. I'm going to guess that your hot dog stand is not going to do all that well. But let's take that same hot dog stand and instead you're going to have to work some crappy hours here, but it's 2 a.m. and you've positioned it outside the local nightclub and or outside the local pub. The patrons are coming out, they're a bit boozy, they're hungry, they're not nearly as selective in one, with how much money they're going to spend, and two, what they want. That lukewarm hot dog on stale bread probably tastes all right at 2 a.m. in the morning if you're a little bit hammered. The difference there is that we've found a starving audience. Now, what has this got to do with wellness and prevention? Now, here's what it is. Wellness and prevention are not a starving audience. In fact, psychologists have shown again and again and again that we're really terrible at predicting our future when it comes to our health. There's been lots of neat little studies done on people who've bought health equipment, i.e., a gym, a treadmill, those kind of things there too. And they ask them, how many times are you going to use this? And they wrongly predict. And then they ask them the question again, in an ideal world, how many times are you going to use it? Again, they wrongly predict. And even when they tell them again, now be realistic, Angus, be realistic, how many times are you going to use the gym equipment there? We're wrong. Now, we wrongly predict that in the future we're going to eat better, we're going to exercise more, we're going to sleep more. We're wrongly predict in the future we're going to have more money, our relationships are going to be better. Now, I think we do this because, if we thought about the future being worse, it would be really terrible for our mental and emotional well-being. Many of us would not want to continue on with our lives. So given that, if you're trying to sell something to them that's very future-based, wellness and prevention, they already think they've got the problem solved. So why do I need you? Now, business, in essence, is all about solving problems. The bigger problem you solve, the more intense that problem is, the easier it is to sell a solution for it, and the more you can charge for that problem as well. And if somebody thinks that I've already got a solution for that problem, it's really, really difficult to sell. Now, what are people looking for? Now, we are much more irrationally focused on solving a problem right now, moving away from a pain, than we are moving towards something in the future. We're much more likely to kind of move away from pain than we are towards pleasure. That was what I was trying to say. I got a bit distracted thinking about what I wanted to say next here for a moment as well. So if you're looking for a starving audience, what I'm going to suggest that you do is that you go towards where the pains are. Now, there are plenty of people in your community that you can help with back pains and neck pain and sciatica and all those things. And in fact, my big realization, my aha moment when I thought I had this wonderful wellness practice is I went through and I thought about 10 of the patients who I just loved looking after, who got the big idea of chiropractic. You know, their families were coming in, they were doing the whole thing. And I went back and I looked at why they originally came in to see me. And almost all of them came in to see me with some kind of musculoskeletal ache and pain. And what I then did is I talked to them about what their problem was. We talked about how to go about solving their problem. And then along the way, I expanded their vision for their health and for their wellness, not only for them, but their family. What I did is I met them where they are at the moment. I solved their original problem, and then I opened up new opportunities for them. I realized that you could absolutely take people who were having symptoms, because most people, I think, healthy people anyway, with a healthy state of mind, if they're coming into you with backaches and pains, if you were to say to them, hey, listen, Angus, I can help you get rid of your aches and pains without drugs, without surgery, and I can also show you a way that you can perform better in the future, that you can have more energy, maybe your immune system better, and I can give you a whole new way of looking at health and wellness for you and your family there. Are you up for that? Most people will raise their hand and say, hell yes. But it has to start with you helping me with my back, because I don't want the other stuff if you can't help me with the sciatica I've got at the moment. And that's the big mistake. We don't have to do the bait and switch, which would be, start to sell sciatica out there to our community, that when the patient then comes into our practice, say, listen, I'm never talking to you about your symptoms anymore. Chiropractic is not about symptoms. I think I'm really happy talking with people about symptoms. As somebody who has had periods of back pain themselves, I'm very happy talking about it. I get great results with these symptoms. And in fact, the reason I get great results with these symptoms is because of the beautiful chiropractic approach. It's because I'm not actually treating them. I'm looking at the whole body there. I know that the body needs no help. I know that the body just needs no interference. So if you're wanting your marketing to be way more effective, then the thing that you need to do is decide who is your starving audience. Who is the audience out there that is irrationally looking for a solution? Now, maybe you're helping out parents of kids who have learning difficulties. Tony Ebel often talks about these kids with a perfect storm. These are parents of kids on either learning, ADHD, those kind of things there too, that don't want to be taking drugs. They're frustrated with the solutions they've been giving them. They're looking for different, diet options, behavior options, those kind of things there too. They are looking for solutions. The problem is big. And if you raise your hand in front of them and you let them know that there's another way to go about it, that you have a natural solution for this is a starving audience, okay? People who are in pain are a starving audience as well. So the other challenge that goes along with this too is that the idea that you and I have for health is really very different than what the world does. When we think about the body being self-healing, when we think about the nervous system being the master system, when we think about this concept of the body needing no help, it just needs no interference. This is a concept that is very much hidden in society. And so when I'm looking for a solution, whether it be to my shoulder problem, my headaches, whether I'm looking for a solution to my child who won't sleep through the night there too, introducing me to these hidden ideas up front just isn't going to work. However, introducing me and letting me know that you have a solution for my problem, talking about my problem, and then introducing me to these concepts down the track there will make all of the difference. So, in essence, selling or marketing prevention and wellness is difficult because it's a problem that's already solved. It's difficult because people aren't as motivated to solve and step into wellness and prevention as they are to move away from a pain and a symptom. It's difficult because wellness and prevention audiences are not a starving audience. And if you want your restaurant to be a success, then you need to find a starving audience. Now, don't for one moment let anybody tell you that these patients can't become wonderful long-term chiropractic patients, because you can educate these people when they are in front of you. You can educate these people when you have a relationship with them. It's just very difficult to do that in a 30-second video when you're on Instagram or YouTube or Snapchat as well. If you want your marketing to improve in 2022, then find your starving audience. Start solving their problems and invite them into the practice, and you will see things change enormously as well. Folks, that's it from me today on episode 245. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks again for all that you do. keep saving lives. Your community so desperately needs you. Hey, quick question to ask here too. If you haven't, can you please like and or comment and give me a review for the podcast as well? That's my request for you. When you leave a review for the podcast, it does a few different things there as well. It gets the podcast out to more people, which is very, very helpful for me as well. Increases my audience size there too. Now, here's why that makes a difference for you as well. It means that I can attract higher quality guests on there, because one of the things when the guests come on the podcast is they want to know things like how many people does it reach, and does it go around the globe, or is it just local people there in Australia? The more people I can reach, I can start to get more people onto the podcast that will be more helpful for you. It's a win-win. Help me, help you. A bit of Jerry Maguire going on there. Anyway, gang, I'm waffling on now. I do adore you. So if you had a moment after listening to this episode and you could rate and review the podcast, I'd appreciate that enormously. Right, see you soon. Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.